Hey, ho, let's go. Vad är den går ut på?
Vi ska hämta några antivirals.
Okej.
Det har varit en stor...
Hurray! Ja. Men... går inte och...
Nej, det är online-flöde.
Jaha. Då fick jag ändå inte pausa heller.
Nej. Jag kan inte säga. Nej, korridorer.
Jag är inte superintresserad vad det är.
Nej.
Okay. We are doing well. And he is playing. He moved the computer today. And of course, he had to start some kind of online game and is stuck in the middle of a campaign of some kind. So he isn't really ready to leave quite yet. But hey, wild child. So we will have to do some other talking for a little while until he can actually shut this down and I can focus without getting annoyed on the shooting. Vad sa du att spelet hette?
Division 2.
Okay. He's playing something called Division 2. Earlier he was trying out Kirby and Portals and something more. Yeah, it's some kind of shooter game. And I think it's supposed to be a little bit lifelike in some way. So he can do this and pretend that he is in like the Navy SEAL or something. I'm not sure, but yeah. Yeah, Portals is really fun. We have been playing it together. But he just came out with the idea from nowhere to move the computer to make it have better connection with our Wi-Fi or with our internet connection, so it will work a little bit better. And then he of course had to try it out and try a lot of different game, of course also online gaming, to see if the change was as good as he hoped it would be. So yeah. Hey Lee, nice to see you here. I will be starting as soon as it gets a little bit more quiet around here. I will start with the true crime part of this, and until then we will just be chatting along a little bit, and I am slowly preparing all my bobbins for my first bobbin lace. And yeah, I of course have to do black lace instead of white, because you can't do stuff the way it normally is supposed to be done. We'll see. I have a plan. Now I will start with a little bit more simple thing, just to get back into this, because it will have been so long since I was using this kind of bobbin lace. But I'm gonna show you what my goal is in the end to be able to do. See, I want to get to this, maybe not this extreme good kind of level, but I have this as my kind of goal picture to get into being able to do bobbin lace with fine metal thread and beads. That is my dream. Isn't that great? Here's another one. This is a Swedish bobbin lace crater. So we'll see in the end. Hopefully we'll be able to combine my beading and this in more than one way. We will see. It's so much fun to watch when my husband is playing, because he looks so incredible serious and focused, deep focus. And because it's evening time for me, I have also added today a little bit of Swedish candy and pink grape lemonade to really get cozy while doing this. As cozy as this can get when we're talking about true crime and murder later on. Please write stuff in chat. I get nervous that YouTube is being bad again and not showing me if someone is writing. And if you're writing and I don't seem to respond, if you're in my Discord, in the Friends of Hello Kitty Discord, please write something there so I know that the chat maybe has been disconnected or something. Yes, I know what's going on. Yeah, I could see that. Good. Then the chat seemed to be working for now. But I just want to be sure, so I don't feel too ignored or afraid that you will feel ignored, that I don't see if you're writing something and just doing my own thing. We'll see. Men där ser ju också sci-fi ut.
Ja, det är deras fel.
De luras.
Ja, det är försök till att vara samtidigt.
Mm. Yeah, we will see if I manage to do this as I hope. But yeah, hopefully. And I have already found out where I can get more lace patterns to try out as well later on. Now, when I bought this today at Goodwill, they had a lot of lace pattern following. So I just need to check out some of them because they didn't come with the full description. So it's not as clear in some of these how you are supposed to work them, but we will see. We'll need to do some kind of exchange later on, Cal, if I can get this working with something that's more, straight or smaller than this one. This is supposed to be like for a candle. My plan is to do maybe 2 of them and put on like a small crochet bag or something like that. Is what I'm thinking about to do. Okay. That's my first. So yeah, but as in many of these kind of things, the preparation is what takes the longest time in the start. So this is the first one. I need to do 30 before I can even try to start doing this lace. And I need to be thinking this through. So, are you having a good Saturday, or have you had a good Saturday, depending on what time it is where you are? Yeah, I have a lot of thread to practice my lace working with too. So yeah, we will practice and then we will see where we can get going. And that's the fun thing, I think, with all of this, with the community we start to build also, that we all connect over the beads, but in the end we also like so many other different kind of craft and how we can combine them in different ways. I think it will be really cool to see what this will end up in the future, since we are just starting out, you know. Har du något klar i mål nu?
Ja, jag ska bara ta mig ur det här så jag är safe.
He's almost done! Yay! Woohoo! Gratinera!
Rättälj.
Gratinera och celebrera. Eller något. Hello, Corina! Nice to see you here in our little crafting corner. How are you doing? Får du gå ner och bråka istället med de här banditerna? Good to hear, Corina. I missed your live. I saw you had been on, but I think it was like middle of the night for me and I went to bed. Right, Cal? We will be beautifying the world. Do you remember maybe like 8 to 10 years ago there was this what was I going to say? You had this like knitting or crochet graffiti. That was a huge thing. Now it died out, but I would like to see something like that come back, you know, people doing craft and then just put it up in wildest places around in the city and stuff like that, just to, just make people smile, make the cityscape a little bit more beautiful. That would be so cool to do. Right now, Patricia, I am going to work on this. This is how it's supposed to be when it's done. So it's for a candle holder originally, but I'm not going to use it like that. But this is the first thing I will be doing for like 8 years or something like that, since I used bobbin lace last time. So this, my bobbin pillow, I got today from Goodwill. And I'm so you know, a new one of these in Sweden, they cost around $600. But when older people that have liked to do bobbin lace dies, their relatives most often just give this away to Goodwill and they sell it really cheap. So for me today to get this one with all the pins, with like this bag of patterns for lace, and I don't know, maybe 50 bobbins or something like that, because I have a lot in the box also. All of that was I think like $11 instead of $500 or $600. And this looks almost like new. It's in such good quality. Vad gör du?
Vad är det där?
Vad är vad? Jag kände för att sätta på det för att jag inte har tvättat det på snart 1,5 vecka.
Nu ska du visa mig också.
He wants to say hi. So, I don't know, humor him asking something and then he can leave and I can start to talk true crime with you all.
Vad säger du?
Did you win?
Finally made it. It was a long fight, but I pulled through.
Actually, Patricia, in where I live, we have a special, what do you call it? Group. Förening, vad fan heter förening? I completely forgot the word for it.
Förening.
Yeah. Non-profit organization that solely works with the aim to keep bobbin lace alive. So they have like I went to the webpage and I think they had like 800 or something like that different lace patterns that you can buy really cheap, and then you get this hard, pin pattern, and you get the written description on how to work the patterns. So they actually had a lot. Unfortunately, of course, they are all in Swedish, so if you can't Swedish, read or understand Swedish, it's a little bit harder, but you can use AI to help you if that would be of interest. So, but yeah. And they also sell extra bobbins. They sell these bobbin cushions, but like I said, for like $600. The only thing I actually will be purchasing from them in the future is that they have round instead of this wheel that you can spin on. They have a round plate you can put in here and go clockwise on, because that would be really good for this kind of patterns. But that will be in the future sometime. I will get that one. Okay. Now when it's a little bit more silence around me and not a lot of pow 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 pow, we can actually get into the true crime part also of this, if you feel ready enough for it. And when I did the live a couple of days ago, the wish was for me to do a Swedish case that a Swedish case that still kind of was a bit controversial, where the public maybe are not fully convinced on what have happened or stuff like that. But and that's why I chose the case of the murder of Catrine DaCosta. So let's go to see. I will have them there for now. This is just super regular pins. Those you can buy like 100 for $1 or something like that, because and I go with what they came with the pillow this time. So, but if I going to buy new ones, I will probably just buy something similar, because they are very small and easy to get by. Like you can see, since I got this at the Goodwill, some of the pins is a bit rusty. So then I will someday, not today, but another day, I will go through and take away the rusty ones and then get some new pins in the end. But let's see. I will continue. These are steel pins. They hold really well. Of course, if I do punch them really hard in, they can bend a little bit, but it's not that bad. I will get going with the Catrine DaCosta. Write in the chat if you want me to explain something, if there's something you didn't catch, or anything you can think about that you come to think about when I go through this Swedish case. And like I said, this is a very controversial case, and it's a cold case, an old case. And I think there is part of this that will probably make you mad, just as it had made a lot of Swedes really, really mad. But I'm going to start from the top, so to say. Catrine DaCosta She was born 19th of June 1956 in a Swedish town called Luleå, where I actually used to live. And it's way, way, way up in the north of Sweden. It's so high north, it's over the pole circle. We had in Luleå you have the midnight sun. So in the summer it is light day around, but on the other hand, in the winter it's more or less dark all day. The perks of it is that you can get to see the northern lights often. So, but she was there only for about 3 years. So in 1959, her mother and her sister moved down to a suburb to Stockholm called Traneberg. So she lived very close to the Swedish capital. There's not that much known about Catrine's childhood and how she grew up, but more or less that it was quite normal. She lived with her mother, she lived with her sister. It was nothing that unusual for the time. But when she got into her teens or late teens, she got into the wrong kind of company. And she ended up getting married to a guy from Portugal, and it was in that marriage she got the surname of DaCosta, because DaCosta is not a Swedish name. Her original maiden name was, I think, Hellström. But she got married to that man, and she got 2 children with him. But it didn't work out. They ended up getting a divorce and separate. But she lived both in Sweden and Portugal for quite a while. And like I said, she got into the worst kind of company. So by the time the murder happened, she was selling sex to get money. And most of the money she got, she used to buy heroin and other heavy drugs, and to finance this heavy drug abuse that she had. She was also homeless, and her children was not living with her due to this. So she also sold sex in exchange to have somewhere to sleep for the night. But no one to this day is unclear exactly what happened when she got murdered. And no one really, because of the way her body was found, they have never been able to actually find out the way she was killed. Or, of course, the people that have been pointed out as the perpetrators has also claimed that they, of course, didn't do anything. And they have never been able to be proven that someone actually killed her. So people that have not the nicest kind of views about women in prostitution, with heavy drug abuse, they of course think that she just had an overdose. But to come to why this case is one of the most well-known Swedish cases for people in Sweden, I should say, is that on the 18th of July 1984, so when Catrine DaCosta was 27 years old, a man is out in the suburb of Solna, that's also close to Stockholm, and walking his dog, of course. And in classical black plastic bags. He sees something that shouldn't be there. He calls the police gets there, and they start to look through these plastic bags, and in them they found parts of a dismembered female body. And first, they can't identify the body parts as Catrine DaCosta because of how harmed the body had been. And they didn't have the hands, for example, in the beginning. And on the 7th of August, another one out walking his dogs find another set of black plastic bags, and in them they found more body parts from Catrine DaCosta. And now they actually found her hands, and through the hands they could identify her by the fingerprints. But she was really, really badly dismembered, and it was very clear that the dismemberment and the murder had been in ways sexually motivated. So they had cut off, he or they that did it had cut off both of her breasts, they cut off her head, and they had also cut out her female sexual organs, so to say. And one of the breasts, her head, and the parts of her sexual organs has never been found. So yeah. But as I said, thanks to the fingerprints, they could identify her and start to try to find out what happened. Because of the time in Sweden, there was very high crime rate in Sweden at this time. So in the beginning, this didn't get that much notice because there was too much violent crime for the media to get that interested in it, actually. But after the more and more of the details of the brutality of the murder came out, media got interested, and when media got interested, more people got interested in this. So when they started to try to find out a timeline of when Catrine was last time seen, it was very hard to get a timeline that worked out when the timing for her body being found. So some people said that they haven't heard from her or no one can have seen her by like the 6th or 7th of July, that would have been the last time she was seen. And some other people said that they saw her later. One man that was a friend of Catrine said that he had contact with her around his birthday or the day after his birthday, and his birthday was on the 12th of July. So around 6 days to a week before her body was found. But then there was people that claimed that they had seen her together with a man, an unknown man, somewhere around the 16th of July. But this was people that didn't know her, that had only seen her picture in the news media. So it's very unclear how reliable those sources are. But when they started to try to actually find out where she had been, they could find some traces to actually the Swedish forensic clinic, or where unit is the word I was searching for, the Swedish forensic unit at the Stockholm police. And that made one of the prime suspects that also still to this day is one of the main suspects for this murder to be revealed. And his name was Tiit Harm. Yes, it's a very, very funny name, Tiit. And by this time, he was 30 years old. And he worked as a forensic doctor. He was known to be using the services of prostitutes, and in his phone they could find that he had have some connection with the Catrine DaCosta while she was alive. His place of work was very, very close to where her body was found, and he had the ability to get her into a specific kind of room if he wanted to, where he could dismember her body and get away with all traces of it. He had a friend. His name was named Thomas Allen in Swedish. And Thomas Allen, he was also a doctor, but not a forensic doctor. He was a general practitioner. And by this time, he was just a little bit over 30. And he was married, but his marriage was very, very rocky. And he was on the verge of being divorced to his, what's come to be then, ex-wife. And when this news about Catrine DaCosta reached media, and later when it reached media that people had seen Catrine DaCosta around Tiit and Tiit's workplace, she, the wife of Thomas Allen, started to have some suspicions of her own. And here is where this very, very gruesome and tragic story takes another really dark and twisted turn. Hi, Tai Fedi. Well, the wife of Thomas Allen, she decided to use the murder of Catrine DaCosta to get her ex-husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband, out of her life, but also her daughter's life. Because Thomas and his wife had a daughter that by the time of the murder of Catrine, she was 18 months old. Only 18 months old. So first, the wife said to the police, or claimed to the police, that she was pretty sure that Thomas had sexually abused their daughter, their infant daughter. These accusations didn't go anywhere. There was no proof of it whatsoever. She was the girl was in public preschool kindergarten, in Swedish kindergarten, and the women there all said that they couldn't find any trace of her being abused in any kind of way, and they did change diapers. They did, see those private parts of her and could have seen if something was not correct, so to say. But I couldn't find anything like that. And Thomas said, of course, that he had in no way, shape, or form touched his daughter in an inappropriate way. But this accusation went on for a while, about a year. So when the daughter was around 2.5, 3 years old, the case of Catrine DaCosta had really blown up in media. And now the wife stepped forward and says that her daughter has remembered that she had seen the murder and dismemberment of Catrine DaCosta, and that this murder happened at Tiit Harm's workplace at the forensic center, and that Thomas and Tiit together committed this murder. And this, now we are in like 1985, the end of 1985, and this is just around the time of the Satanic Panic, and when Satanic Panic came to Sweden. So the mother claims that this little daughter of her had said that this murder and dismemberment of Catrine DaCosta had been part of a satanic ritual that the girl had been witnessing, and that this wasn't the only kind of satanic ritual that her dad has taken her with him to witness. So with these new claims, the police start to look in closer on both Teeth and Thomas. They both say that they have had nothing to do with this. But another thing that got really, really big in Sweden around this time was the idea of repressed memories. And we had in Sweden a female psychologist that was really, really heavy into this. So much that we had another kind of scandal in Sweden that is still being talked about a lot, where a man claimed that he had been involved in several murders and sexual assaults. And he was thought to be the only or the first real serial killer in Sweden. But he also claimed that the reason he hadn't said anything about all these murders before was because he had repressed the memories of these murders, and that he needed help to unlock these memories. So they took him to the place of the murder scenes, and the police more or less told this man what to say to get his story to be correct with the forensic evidence that the police already had. But like I said, this was at the same time, more or less the same time as the murder of Catrine DaCosta. So this person, this female psychologist, also started to work with Thomas Allén's wife and his daughter. And she started to claim that because the daughter had been so young, only 18 months by the time of Catrine DaCosta's murder, she couldn't remember everything as vivid as you may have been able to remember it if you was to see something like this as a grown-up. But she claimed that with the right kind of help, the daughter would be able to remember all of these things. And that help was hypnosis and dream analysis and things like that. And there are recordings. I'm not going to play anything because most of you won't understand a word of it anyways. But there are recordings when the mother and this psychologist is talking to the daughter, and they are very, very clearly steering the daughter into what she's supposed to be saying. So in this case, for example, the mother goes in and said that the daughter has named Tit Harm as the one who did this killing. And the way that the daughter had identified Tit and pointed him out was that she had seen a picture and pointed at that picture and said, "That's Tit." And later on also pointed to like a teddy bear and said, "Oh, this is Tit." The thing is, the daughter also had a relative that she loved really, really much. And the way she said that relative's name was very close to Tit. So, seeing that for the fact that the daughter had actually never met Teet, as far as the mother knew, and according to Teet and to Thomas, they had never met, because Thomas and Teet was just, they weren't really friends, they were more just working colleagues. But the relative that the daughter could have been talking to was someone that the daughter really loved. And that makes a lot of people question whether this girl was actually talking about this more or less for her unknown Teet Harm, or if she was actually talking about the relative that she liked. So yeah. But because of all of this satanic panic and this repressed memories thing, the police still runs with this. They have no real proof of Catrine being at Teet's workplace. They can, in some ways, connect Teet and Catrine together, but they can't connect Thomas Alén and Catrine together. In media, this blows up even more because of this satanic panic thing. And the mother starts to claim that the daughter has talked about how there was people there with dark cloaks, and how she couldn't really see who they were. And then she talked about this aunt, she called her, that the daddy had done weird things too, I can say. But yeah, without any real proof, this still goes to court. And the first time it goes to court is in the beginning of 1988, so about 4 years after the murder. And the first time in court, they actually have a mistrial. I can't remember really what the mistrial was about, but it ends in a mistrial. I think it actually had to do with media, and some of the nämndemän, or this Swedish kind of jury, talking to media in a way they are not allowed to do. So they had a mistrial. And then by the end of 1988, they have a new trial. And in this trial, they say that they can't say that Teet and Thomas actually killed Catrine. They have no evidence for them killing her. But what they can do is they say that they feel it proven that Teet and Thomas together dismembered Catrine DaCosta's body. But because it has been 4 years since the murder, the time of limitation has run up, so they can't be actually punished for it. But in the end, because of this, both Teet and Thomas get their licenses revoked. They can't work as doctors anymore. And they have to go underground, so to say. In 1986, we had the murder of the Prime Minister Olof Palme in Sweden. And this takes more or less all the police resources in Sweden for a long time. And a murdered prostitute woman, that's not high in line for what the police is going to focus on. So after 1986, they just stopped caring about Catrine DaCosta. end the case. So because of that, they didn't follow up on other leads that they got. They didn't follow up on new evidence. And when Teet and Thomas kind of got the court ruling that they were responsible of the dismemberment of Catrine DaCosta, even if they couldn't be found guilty of the murder, it was in the eyes of the state and in the eyes of the police a done case. So they stopped caring. So after these two trials, there was, I think, over the years, like 5 different books written about Catrine DaCosta and about this case and about the doctors involved or what they think was involved. So the first book came out in 1991 and had the name Death is a Man. I think you can guess a little bit what kind of point of view that book had of this all. But yeah. And then there was a few other books, and one of the newer books that come out in the early 2000s had they were named Catrine and the Truth. And later on there was also a book named I think Catrine and the Lack of Truth. There have been several documentaries done about this, and well, like I said, this is a case that really splits the opinion in Sweden. And one reason that I have this so clear in mind is the fact that in last year, sorry, I'm off on the years, to 2025, there was a new documentary done by the Swedish state television. And in that, they actually went through, like I said, the fact that the police hadn't looked up all different kind of evidence that it was. They didn't follow other leads on potential suspects and so on. And they could also really clearly point to the facts that the main witness in Thomas' little girl was a very poor witness due to her mother's involvement and clearly the mother projecting what she wanted the girl to say or believe. And after that documentary, the Swedish Society for Doctors went out and said that they wanted to have a full investigation to how Teet and Thomas got their licenses revoked, to see if there was other misconducts that led to this, because if Catrine DaCosta was the reason for the licenses being revoked, then they should get an apology and get the licenses back, even if today it wouldn't matter because it had been too long for them not being in the field for them to go back to be doctors today. But still, they want to look into this. And there has also been a lot of criticism around some of the bigger feministic organizations in Sweden and how they have not wanting to look at facts when the facts hasn't been good enough of a story for them. And the thing is, no matter how you see it, there still was a woman that was incredibly vulnerable, that had lived a really, really rough life, that got killed in a way that is clearly sexual motivated and an act of pure hatred against women. And we don't need to add details like maybe a forensic doctor being involved or satanic rituals or stuff like that for it to be a bad story, a bad murder, a dark thing that happened. But yeah, still to this day, some people claim that, of course, it was Tita and Thomas that did this. They would never, ever say it out loud, of course, but they are the ones responsible. And then there are others like me that say that we don't have the evidence, and I, for one, are really, really mad about how low value the Swedish police at the time put into this murdered woman. How little they cared about her life, about her children, her sister, her mother, the ones that actually loved her. And you know, the fact that they just didn't care to try to find out what actually happened. That they just said, we don't really care. She's already dead. That's a little bit how their reasoning sounds to me, at least. That they are more or less like, she's already dead, why should we bother? So yeah, that was the murder and dismemberment of Catrine DaCosta. And like I said, to this day, there's no answer to how she actually was killed, and there's no answer to who really did it. So, one of the most well-known cases in Sweden. What do you guys think about it? Right, Cal? It's just, they are the ones we are supposed to, you know, to turn to when bad things happen, and when they just don't care, it's like, then there's no one there to help, and that's so sad. And in some ways, I do understand the whole thing with Olof Palme being killed and stuff like that, but at the same time, I mean, he was killed like 1.5 years later. They should have had the time to look into this quite a lot before that happened, and they didn't, because they didn't care. So, what kind of crimes are you interested in learning more about, or do you want to hear more international crimes, more of the Swedish? Because I could like to do Swedish crime, because you know all bigger true crimes channels out there, they are so focused, you know, it's mostly American crimes and sometimes Australian or British crimes. But Swedish crimes or Nordic crimes, you don't get to hear that much about. So, yeah. Well, and then Swedish crimes or Nordic crimes actually are quite of my favorite. I don't know if you have ever heard about Baneheia. That's not a Swedish crime, it's a Norwegian murder. case that's been quite big in Nordic media the last like 2 years because of it being one of the biggest scandals in Norway. That one I can actually take more. Bye for now, Patricia. I hope I'll see you back here some other day. I just need to drink a little. Banahea, I can actually do it just out of memory, due to me being seen so many documentaries and follow it along a lot this couple of years. I was just going to show you like this. This was Catrine. As you can see, she was quite young. I think younger than people might have realized sometimes. And this is from the Swedish newspaper Aftonbladet, by the from the times by the murder time. And this is from December of 1984, so almost half a year later. And that's when Tiit Harm gets into custody for the murder. But the picture here is from when they did another documentary in 2024. So not the one I was talking about from 2025, but yeah. So that was Catrine DaCosta. But Baneheia, it's, like I said, a Norwegian case. And I have to think about how to pronunciate stuff because, you know, since Norway and Sweden, we have very similar language when it comes to the written word, not so much when it comes to how we talk. But Baneheia, it's a very small part of the kind of small town of Kristiansand in Norway. And this murder, it happened in year 2000, in May of 2000. And the victims were two small girls. They were 8 and 10 years old. And like I said, this Baneheia, it's a part of Kristiansand that is for recreational purposes. So they have like a few small, not beaches, swimming places, and there are a lot of places where you can go and just climb in the mountains. You can go out with your tents and yeah, things like that. But these two girls, named Lena and Sophie, they were really, really good friends, and their parents, and especially their dads, were also very good friends. And they lived close by in Kristiansand. They lived on the same street. And this day, 19th of May, it had been a very, very hot day for it to only be in May. And Lena and Stina had been, Stina Sophie had been playing together during the day. And now in the evening, they asked if they could go over to Banahea and swim. They just take like a evening swim in one of the lakes there. And their dads said that that was okay, but they had to be home by like 8:30 in the evening. So they got help to pack their swimsuits and a little bit of a picnic, some drinks and cookies. And then they walked away to go to this lake. And they, like I said, they were only 10 and 8 years old, but they lived so close by that they had like 10 minutes to walk only, 5 to 10 minutes to walk to this little lake. And they go away and they are very, very happy. But when the clock starts to be around 9 in the evening, they are not back. And the dads call each other and start to wonder where they are. Why are they not there? Why haven't they come back yet? And they go away, go together, follow the bike/walking trail from their homes over to the lake. And they can't see their daughters anyway. They were hoping that they would meeting on the way, that the daughters had just forgot about the time or something like that, because it's easy to do when you are having fun and you're out swimming and you are young. But they can't find them. And they eventually have to call the police and say that their girls are missing. And the police take this very, very seriously. They come with search dogs, they come with big search parties. They also includes the Norwegian Red Cross to have volunteers to come and try to look for the girls. But because it's still in just May, it gets dark and they have to call off the search by the middle of the night because they can't see anything. And then in the morning, they take up the search again. And now they start to look a little bit more outside of the different trails to try to see if they can find them somewhere out in the greenery in the forest. And there suddenly, when they are looking, I think, if I remember correctly now, the one that actually find the first trails of the girls is the uncle of one of the girls. And he finds one of the bags with their swimwear. And when he says that, the police comes over and the part of the search team from the Red Cross comes over and they start to looking more closely by where they find this stuff. And in a shallow kind of grave, it's more like just a little bit of a ditch in the ground. They find the girls under like rubbery. Someone has taken leaf and broken pieces of wood and stuff like that and just put it over the girls so they wouldn't be as easily noticed. And of course, both of the girls is dead. And the police goes out directly and said that this is what have happened. The girls has been found, but they are dead, and they want to get all information in that they can get in about this. And immediately they get witnesses to say that they have seen the girls. They met them when they were on the way to the lake, and they were so happy. And they met a few girls that was, I think, like 17, 18, that was also on the way to go swimming. and those girls was talking a little bit to Lena and Stine Sophie, but the older girls left, and when they left, they said that they still saw that the small little girls were talking by the beach. But then and some other people come forward and said that I have seen two young men around close to this lake around the time where the girls would have been there. And these two guys is one that's named Jan Helge Andersen, and he was born in 1981, so by the time of this he was 19. And then we have Viggo Christiansen, and he was born in 1979, so by the time this happened he was 21 years old. And the police immediately get very, very interested in especially Viggo, because Viggo had been sentenced to juvenile detention for an attempted rape of a 12-year-old girl when he was 15 or 16. So he was also very young, but still. But they immediately look into both Jan Helge and Viggo. And because of Viggo's history and the fact that he's a bit older, the police think that if Viggo and Jan Helge did this thing to the girls, he was probably the one who pushed or forced Jan Helge to join in. And when the bodies of the girls have been gone through by doctors, they could also see that both of the girls had been raped before they got killed. And the police takes in both Viggo and Jan Helge and start to pressure them. And it doesn't take that long of a time before Jan Helge admits to him and Viggo being there and that they've tricked the girls to follow them into the woods. But in Jan Helge's story, he claimed that Viggo was the one who raped the girls, and he claims that Viggo was the one who killed them. And that he was just more or less forced to stay guard. When new evidence resurfaces, when they look more into the crime scene, they can see that his story doesn't work out. So they pressure him some more, and by the time they have pressured him and have him when I've talked to him for several hours about the fact that his story doesn't line up with the evidence, he changed his story and said that Viggo forced him and threatened him with a knife to also rape one of the girls and to strangle the smaller one of them. And this goes to court, and they could see they had DNA, but in 2000 the DNA wasn't that good yet, so the only thing they could see from the DNA was that the DNA they could take didn't really match up to Viggo in some way, but it did match up with Jan Helge, and that's why he had to change his story, that he had been involved more than he initially said that he had been. But in 2001 and 2000, they got sentenced for the murder and rape of both girls. And Viggo, he got the harshest punishment. He got sentenced to 21 year in prison. And that's more or less like the maximum sentence you can get in Norway. And because Jan Helge Andersen did some kind of confession and was cooperative, he got a lesser sentence. And he got sentenced to part of it. Didn't get sentenced to murder and rape of both the girls. He got sentenced for one of them. And he, if I remember right, got 18 years instead of 21 or something like that. But through this all of those 21 years that Viggo had to sit in prison, he claimed that he was innocent. He claimed that he had nothing to do with the rape or the killings of these girls. And when the technology got better, he got help from a really good lawyer to start to look into his case again and again. And during the 21 years in prison, because he had to sit through all the 21 years, there was no talk about early release here. They don't really have that in Norway, that you can get released because you are acting good in prison. So he actually had to sit for 21 years. And he made 9 appeals to get his sentence looked over. And most of the times, he didn't get anywhere with it. They just said no, or that the new evidence wasn't relevant and stuff like that. But 2021, when he got out of prison and could start to do more of the work himself, he started to be able to show and document a lot of things. One thing he documented and managed to get in the final appeal later on was the fact that there was witnesses that had seen him by his bike by a stop mark where he had placed the bike when they went into Baneheia. And the way the timeline added up, he couldn't have been by his bike when people had seen him by that bike and being the one responsible for the killings of the girls at the same time. Because to be responsible for the killings of the girls and be by the bike, he needed to be at two places at the same time. He was also able to get old phone records of his cell phone from 2000, and was able through that to show that his cell phone had been in his home the whole time that these murders should have been happening, for the story for all the timelines to add up. And Jan Helge actually get questions about this, and he then tried to say that, well, maybe Viggo had forgot the phone at home and stuff like that. But this got countered by the fact that Jan Helge himself actually called Viggo during the time that he claimed that Viggo was killing the girls. And Viggo answered his phone in his home. They also check over all of the DNA once again. And now with the way the technology has advanced, they can with certainty say that none of the DNA on the girls, or that they could find around the girls, came from Viggo. All of the DNA came from Jan Helge. So finally, in 2022, the criminal court system in Kristiansand accepted an appeal of Viggo's sentence. They redid his trial, And by the end of it, they come to the conclusion that Viggo was innocent. So he spent 21 years in prison for one of the most vile kind of crimes you can do, and he didn't do it. They also redid the sentence of Jan Helge, and now he was the one that got sentenced for both of the murder and the rapes of these girls. And yeah, this is seen as the biggest miscarriage of justice in Norway history, or at least modern history, recent history. Thank you, Carl. Interrogated. Sometimes the words just like slips my mind completely. I know what I want to say, but it doesn't come out. Yeah. Viggo, I know, has gotten like millions of Norwegian kroner from the state as kind of an apology, even if there's no way to really apologize for having someone in prison for over 20 years for something they didn't do. The only positive thing for Viggo, I guess, is the fact that he was so young when this happened, that he's still kind of young. I mean, he's just a few years older than I am. So he will still be able to have some kind of life. But before all of this, and before he could appeal his sentence, he was one of the most hated criminals in Norway. I think pretty much the only one more hated than Viggo. That's Behring Breivik, the Utøya mass murderer. That's like the only one was more hated. Now he will still be the most hated. But when you go and kill 60 people, it's hard to not be the most hated guy, actually. So yeah, that's the case of Baneheia and the criminal scandal of the Norwegian justice system. So, and there are actually on HBO Max, you might be able to find, if you look for it, a really, really good documentary short series about Baneheia. I think it's 4 or 5 episodes only, but it's really, really good. And there you can get, they show the maps of how it looked. They show all of these timelines where they could find the phone pinging, the phone records later on, and so on. So it's actually really, really good, even if as a Swede it's hard to see in some ways, because for me as a Swede, Norwegian, how you talk in Norway, it's in some way you always sound cheerful, and it's not good to accidentally sound cheerful when you're talking about an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old being raped and murdered. And here are those little girls that were killed. That was killed. And the text here says, barnedrepene i Kristiansand, ufattelig, hvilken syk satan har gjort dette. Or in Swedish, barnmorden i Kristiansand, ofattbart, vilken sjuk jävel har gjort detta. And in English, the murder of children in Kristiansand, unbelievable, what sick mother have done this. So now you got it in three ways. Yeah. Oops. Ignore that one. But you can see there was so, I don't know, it's so hard in some ways when there's children involved. I have a hard time not thinking it's it's always worse in some ways, and at the same time, just because children being harmed is maybe the worst thing, that's also the kind of crimes I usually look into the most, because I don't know, I get fascinated and angry and a lot of different emotions, but somehow I kind of want to try to understand how in the world someone can decide to do something like this, to go after children, when it feels like we as a society kind of have decided that if it's something you do not get to hurt, it's children, because they can't do anything to you. They can't defend themselves. Yeah, so yeah, if you can stomach sad stories about children, I might be doing some more very well-known Swedish cases involving children that I can guarantee that you haven't heard about. If you are not from Sweden. If you are from Sweden, you have most definitely heard about them. So yeah, that was today's crafting and crime. And I think my Hello Kiki family in her. Amy is on tonight, isn't she? Because she was off yesterday instead for today. Yeah. And I think it's why it's so hard to comprehend and understand why someone wants to do these things. And in this case, to girls that he hadn't any kind of relationship to. It was just that they happened to end up in the same place at the same time. That was the only reason. So yeah. Yeah, thank you, Walter. I think Amy is live soon too. So I think this will be the end of the crime talking for now, or at least the storytelling part of it, because I don't want to be in the middle of something if we realize Amy coming on live and we want to end my live to go and watch Amy instead. But yeah, did you think, when you think about Norway and Sweden, is this the kind of crimes you think that we will have here? Granted, we do not have many of these kind of cases, but still. Yeah, I'm the same, Welsh. My rationale is I want to find some kind of explanation how people get that way. But yeah, it's hard. And actually, sometimes when I listen to other true crime podcasts or look at other true crime channels, I can feel a little bit the same about others' way of being interested in true crime. Like, I used to listen to a Swedish podcaster that in the beginning, when I started listening to him, I actually thought he was really good. And then one day when I was out driving, I was listening to his his telling of the toolbox killers. And by the end of that episode, mind you, this was pure audio podcast, but by the end of his episode, he had part of recordings, the sound from the videotapes that they did when they tortured and killed a girl in the toolbox or the toy box. And I felt so sick, and I couldn't reach my phone and shut it off. And suddenly sitting there driving, you get to hear the cries and the agony of a girl being tortured, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? Sorry for choice words here, but I got so mad because I was like, I'm listening to this kind of podcast and storytelling, or what you want to call it, for, because I want to somehow try to dig deeper into the minds of the people doing this horrible stuff, to try to understand how people get to that kind of points. Because if we can understand why, we can also start to find ways to not have this happen, And I don't need to hear someone actually, not in a horror movie, and I love horror movies, but they are fake. I don't need to hear a real person being tortured and killed to try to understand the mind of the killer. And after that, I couldn't listen to him anymore, and I got so mad. And there somewhere I also start to wonder about. I get like starting to wonder the different mindsets of people in the true crime community. Where I mean, I might be quite double in the sense of me watching really, really gory and horrible horror movies. But like I said, those are fake. But when it comes to true crime and real life events, I don't want those details. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see too much of the details. I want to know what has happened, and I want to know the details. I need to know to understand the situation, and in some cases, understand how the perpetrator is lying. Exactly. I also think that it's about helping with the story of the victims, and I like when you can get the like with Catrine. She's so often, when people tell her story, she's just the name of a body, but most of the times you don't get the part of where she was born. You don't get to know that she had a sister, and so on, and the stuff happened that led her to end up in a really rough place. It's just like one day she was a nobody, the next day she was dead, and when she's dead, we don't need to care about her. Then it's more interesting with the man around somehow. And I think that's why it really rubbed me the wrong way when he added in those sound effect or recordings, that he didn't mention the name of the victim. He didn't somehow tell her story. He just added in, this is the sound she made when she got tortured to death. It's like, this doesn't help. It doesn't protect anyone. It doesn't help understanding. It doesn't add any value more than the pure shock effect of it all. you know. Exactly what this was here. This is exactly how horrible it was. And before this case, he did another one where he read quite a lot from a book that this serial killer had written himself, and he read out loud parts where this serial killer, in his own words, described the feelings and sensations he experienced by a woman, a woman, sorry, a woman, and that I can somehow more understand. First of all, it's reading out loud written words. That doesn't hit at all the same way as actually hearing something happening, and also because it was the words of the murderer, somehow reading his way of describing what he did adds to the understanding of how he thinks and how he functions. And after reading those parts from the book, he also went on to talk about which of the victims this probably was, because the murderer, of course, didn't tell anything about it. And that way he also gave a name and a backstory to the girl that this guy probably was writing about. So that also added somehow to the unexpected situation with suddenly having the sound files from this murder case being played. I didn't like it. Hello, Money. Hope you're having a great day. So, yeah, and I mean, in the toolbox case, there's a lot of pictures as well. And I mean picture of the victims, but there's pictures of this van that they rebuild and how it looked inside. And I mean, like, I those pictures get you a long way to understand how terrible of human beings those two guys were, with all those noises being played. Yeah. But to talk about something a little less dark, do you like Swedish candy? I have seen on TikTok that is somehow going around being super popular. It's, for me, living in Sweden where this is like the everyday candy, it's really funny to see. Thank you, Valchen. Thinking about it, I actually have the perfect case that I'm going to take next week, because I did it with my friend when we had a true crime podcast, and like a week or two after we released the episode, the murder victim's best friend, that's part of all of this, his father actually reached out to us to thank you for how we handled the case. And of course, if I tell it to you, I will tell it in a similar way. but it's a case that it's so interesting. Just a mental thing about it. It gives a lot of things to discuss, and if you come join me next week, I think you will understand why if I do that case. Yeah, right, skeleton. Cal. It's the same thing for me. You know why I'm so interested in true crime. One part is to try to understand the criminal mind, so to speak. Not because I really care about the murderers or and so on, but like I said, because you need that understanding to try to stop the crimes from happening in the first place. And in the end, it's all about the victims. I want to understand for the victim's sake also to understand how we can stop or try to avoid others to also end up as victims, but also in a lot of cases where the police and the government and those who should be there and protect us doesn't do their job. It feels like it's important to also look into the stories for the victims' sake, to get their truth out there, to get their names out there, to give them some kind of justice. Yeah. Child, were you in America also, or are you in UK like Cal? Because these candies named Bob's, the factory where these are made is really close to where I live, and I have been there on a study visitation on an older job I had. We did packaging boxes for the candy, so we went there to see how the fabric, how the industry was, how they did the candy and how everything worked. And I had the chance to go around through all of the factory, candy factory. So, like I said, this is like really local, everyday candy for me. So it's so fun to see when they have reached out outside of Sweden and people really love them. Just have to do one thing here. There's no notification yet that Amy is live, right? I don't want to miss it. Oops. This is for protection from my 7-year-old. Because if he sees something he can pull, he will come and pull it. But if he doesn't see that there's things lying on top of this one, he will let it be. Like that. Well then, I'm going to go off to bed and see when Amy comes on. Hopefully she does. And then I will see a lot of you, I hope, in Amy's chat instead. And this was fun. I'm planning to do this a weekly thing on Saturdays. My time Saturdays. Because that's, to be fair, the only day in the week that I have the energy enough to do this. So I will probably do some kind of live a little bit more freely and less organized someday this week. But next Saturday, I will do another craft and crime. And next week, I will start off with the murder case of Magnus Natschke. And I think you want to hear it. I can almost guarantee you want to hear it. Like I said, another Swedish crime that you probably had no clue about, but you will be happy to have heard of when it comes to it. So until then, or until some day in the week when I feel like coming live, I hope you take care. I hope you have a great week, weekend, day, night, whenever you're listening in. Take care. Do some crafting. Carve on a stick. It's good for the soul. Well, I'm going to stop bubbling. See you over at Amy's. See you in Discord. We'll see you around. Take care. Bye.